From the BBC World Service, in association with ABC and All India Radio, this is Stumped.
Hello and welcome to Stumped, your intercontinental hit of news, features and debate from the quirky world of cricket. I'm Alison Mitchell and I am at BBC Sport HQ in Manchester this week. I'm finally in a proper radio studio rather than being at home, but I've been in Manchester for a little while. We had the test match, England's men against South Africa, then a little bit of a break before a 100 match up here as well. Managed to take a stroll out to Alderley Edge, very picturesque part of the world up here. So it's been an enjoyable few weeks, and gosh, going from test cricket to the pace of the 100, these days that's not much difference, is it?
Yes, it's Jim Maxwell in Sydney. Nice to see you in that studio, Ali. And for us, it's springtime. It's just broken a couple of weeks ahead of the official start of the cricket season. But the Australian men's team have been playing a couple of matches up in Queensland in the warm weather in Townsville against Zimbabwe, and they'll be backing that up after that against New Zealand in the 3 days in Cairns.
And I'm Sunil Gupta for All India Radio in New Delhi. And of course, the big news happening here is the Asia Cup, which is now well underway. And the big news, of course, as I'm sure some of you have been following, is the emergence of Afghanistan as a serious contender, because they absolutely ran through Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. Sri Lanka beat them by 8 wickets, Bangladesh by 7. And that means that Sri Lanka and Bangladesh are actually fighting for the last Super 4 spot. So that's the big news insofar as the teams are concerned. But the big news insofar as the Indian team is concerned is that the top 3 are still scratching around: Rahul, Rohit, and of course Virat Kohli. But the big man is a guy nicknamed Sky, and that is Surya Kumar Yadav. And if anybody saw his innings against, yes, albeit Hong Kong, but still it was an innings on a cricket pitch, I can tell you, he is a star waiting to be discovered at the World T20. Watch out for Surya Kumar Yadav, because the sky is literally the limit for him.
Yeah, the T20 World Cup always picks out some talent, doesn't it? Just get those names on the big stage. The world's focus is on them, and it feels as if new names get unearthed. Looking forward to that later in the year for sure. Now, we're going to focus the show this week on cricket in South Africa, because Cricket South Africa has twice before tried to launch a world-class T20 competition, and twice it hasn't succeeded. But this time around, they're attracting some of the biggest names in the world to play in a 6-team men's T20 league that will start in late January. And the league is so important to South Africa that they even scrapped a one-day international series against Australia to make sure that they had their best home players available. A sign of the shifting times, maybe? They've also got one of the biggest names in cricket as commissioner of the tournament, and that is former South Africa captain Graham Smith, who's with us on the show this week. Hi, Graham. How are you doing?
Ellie, thank you. Biggest name. I appreciate that.
You know, we like to puff up our guests a little bit, make you feel at home on stuff.
Puff me up before you start grilling me. I know how it works.
Oh, yeah, you know exactly. Tell us, first of all, then, though, why did Cricket South Africa deem it so important to create this league?
Ellie, I think it's pretty simple, actually. I think, financial stress in particular, you start looking at the way of the world and the world game. And South African cricket really needed to build a product that it owned itself, that it could develop itself, that, we've seen all the other nations, do that successfully. As you mentioned, we haven't been able to do that here. I think we finally got the model right, and we were able to attract, a really good host broadcaster in sub-Saharan Africa, and then attracted the right type of partnerships, which that can help and build and sustain the league into the future. Unfortunately, I think with the way of the world, ICC's become more event-based. Everyone else is becoming event-based. Cricket South Africa's windows are getting tighter. There needed to be an investment into our game, and this is something that they can own and really, use as a big platform.
So you're commissioner. What does that mean exactly? What does that role entail?
Yeah, I'm effectively the CEO. They wanted to use a fancier name, the shareholders. So I think they're also trying to just prop me up a little bit, Ellie.
So what would you say has been the biggest challenge in doing that so far, and how ultimately will success be measured in terms of this tournament, meeting an end goal or an ongoing goal?
Oh, success, I think, is quite a broad question, because there's a lot of different, viewpoints on that. But I think just high level, we would love to, capture the imagination of the South African fan, to have full houses and great energy. I think everyone will talk about the standard of cricket. So, that is something that is first and foremost. Our goal is to be the second best league and, behind IPL. I think it's very difficult to knock IPL off their perch, but our goal is to be right there, right behind them. The biggest challenge up front was, overcoming some of the legacy issues that you mentioned, the Cricket South Africa, trying to build confidence into the marketplace, from a player and an ownership perspective, getting the modeling right. You can't hide away from, the things that have gone wrong in South African cricket, but we were able to work through them. We were able to build some confidence in the player group, pre-signed a number of outstanding players, which is a very difficult marketplace. As James will tell you, Big Bash is struggling. The UAE's, definitely there and thereabouts. So that was tough. The difference between us and them is that we're going to be focusing on building 60, 70, potentially 80 household South African names every year and improving the standard of those guys and putting them on a global platform. So that is our goal and where we kind of differentiate ourselves.
This has supplanted the one-day series you were going to play in Australia. Why is this league more important than an international series against one of the world's best teams?
Oz are not one of the world's best, James. Come on.
They've won more than anyone else.
James, I look at it entirely differently, and I know Cricket South Africa engaged tirelessly with Cricket Australia to find a solution for this window. If you look at it from a South African perspective, financially, to be out of their country at this time of the year it's a no-go. Have you ever seen your Australian team tour over Boxing Day and New Year's anywhere else, James?
Before you were born, they went to South Africa in the old regime, but that's a long time ago.
I actually think that Cricket South Africa is doing an amazing thing for the World Game. It's giving up its home revenue over a key part of the summer to come spend it in yours, James, for the sake of cricket. So, I think that is a perspective that probably hasn't been spoken about. So Cricket South Africa have created this window to invest in their own product. They worked tirelessly with Cricket Australia to find a solution for these games. And there was no solution to be found. So ultimately, they had to make a tough decision. Already out of their country for most of the summer, loss of revenue. And, so needed to put it, if you're going to commit to building this thing, you kind of had to.
Will it benefit the South African national side holding this tournament?
I think that's the goal. I mean, if you just look at India, for example, James, in the IPL, they've elevated enough players to have a number of teams across the board in all formats. And I think that's the goal. Yeah, I mean, Cricket South Africa, if they're cutting, costs and the player standards aren't there, we'll fade away from the world game. I think this opportunity here is to really lift and elevate. If you play for South Africa, we have 15 to 20 guys that are elevated at a global level. And we've seen that standard has fluctuated of late, and we want to just get that up to a level where we can compete with the Englands, the Indias, the Australias, and the likes on a consistent level. I don't think the world game needs South African players to fade away. It needs them to remain strong. And we feel like this is a real opportunity to grow that player base, to strengthen it, and to create more competition in our setup across the board.
But the structure of the game's changing. People moving away more and more, probably as they get older, to franchise cricket rather than playing for their country. How's this going to affect men's and women's game in South Africa?
Cricket South Africa will still run their entire program, their 4-day cricket, their 1-day cricket. They'll also have a feeder T20 system to this. This will just be one of the premier events like the 100 or the Big Bash that happens for us. It's a 3.5-4 week period at most in a season that our SA20 will happen. I guess for me, the older guys are retiring slightly earlier because there's opportunities to, do your trade around there. I think the interesting question for the world game is, the next generation of cricketers, if they start signing permanently with franchises and so on, that's going to be the debate to see, the likes of a Brevis or, a Tim David, for example, that's just been selected, he has options. So I think those are the discussions and, maybe a seat around the world game and an understanding of how this is going to navigate going forward. I mean, even if you look at the ICC, I guess their focus has become world event based and less bilateral as well. They're investing hugely in a tournament every year now. So I guess that there probably does need to be a discussion on how this will structure and move forward.
So does this tournament have an official name? Will it be called the Cricket South Africa T20 League or something a bit flashier?
Jim, I'm so sad our news hasn't arrived in Australia yet. We launched yesterday. It's a simple name, SA20, but so it's something that we feel we can bring to life. It's a strong name, and we've done a lot of work on it. And we'll hopefully over the next few weeks we'll capture your imagination as we build our auction on the 19th.
The names of the teams obviously have a lot of bearing on what the Indian IPL teams are. So could you tell us a little bit about the close ties between this league and the IPL?
Look, I think it's no secret that the IPL owners are looking to expand and have done that, a little bit into the UAE, but extensively into South Africa now. I think that not all of them announced. I see that the Super Kings announced this morning they did a launch. So a lot of it, their brands have stayed the same, but related to cities in South Africa. So MI Cape Town, Joburg Super Kings, Pretoria Capitals, that's been the approach.
Are these close ties between the IPL, India, South Africa, one of the main reasons why no Pakistani players have been signed to play in the tournament as yet?
No, that's actually not the case. So we've allowed everyone to register for the auction. Centrally, as the league, we don't get involved in selection. Our job is to facilitate the players and get them onto the portals and get them registered for the auction. We had a number of them, Pakistan players, register, but we're waiting on the PCB and their approach to our league and UAE and Big Bash and various others.
So obviously the follow-up question relates to Indian players. Now, as you know, the BCCI has a very strict rule about Indian players, including those playing in the IPL, not playing in international franchises. Are you surprised about that? And just to add on to this question, do you think that there will come a time when they will be allowed, especially since, the teams are largely Indian, either owned or named?
So no, it's not a surprise to me. I mean, obviously we've noted it for a long time in the T20 format, the protection of the IPL, and it's extracted serious value and done wonders for Indian cricket. So, I think our hope would be that we could play a role in, also developing Indian talent and attracting it in time. I think everybody wishes that. But we've had discussions with the BCCI and we understand their position currently. If that changes in the future, then I think we're nicely positioned to be able to help Indian cricket as well and to benefit our league with the likes of the Indian stars. But that's just something that we'll just have to cross when it happens.
Graham, I was going to ask you about the women's game. Is this an opportunity missed to launch two tournaments side by side in the manner in which the 100 has been able to launch with a real bang, and arguably I think widely acknowledged that the women's game has almost benefited more so than the men's?
Yeah, Ellie, I mean, fair question, and we debated it up front, but one of the key issues that we had was the Women's World Cup starting just around the corner. So we finished season 1 and the Women's World Cup kicks off almost straight away. So, with teams preparing for that, ability to access the type of talent that was required to pull it off at the same level was going to be a challenge in year 1. It's definitely in our key focus, for year 2, 3 to get something at that level that you guys have been able to achieve in England. I mean, I was there for the test match at Lord's. Now went to 200 games at the Oval. It was, including the one where the ladies' game was the evening game at the Oval. So, that was great to see, and it's definitely in our plans.
And when you're speaking about sort of developing that core of South African local cricketers that can become household names, does the SA20 league does that adhere to the same transformation targets as every other domestic competition in South Africa as well? Does that come under the same banner?
No, I think Cricket South Africa have been clear on that with the investment that we've had into our game. I mean, there's huge investment at different levels there from Cricket South Africa to grow that and policies in place. But from a league and a Cricket South Africa perspective, we don't get involved in selection. We leave that up to the teams and the owners to build their own squads.
Do you think that the league, given that it will have such a high profile and a big platform, does it have with it a responsibility to help with the education and the aiding of the transformation picture in cricket within South Africa, given, I suppose, the last year or so in particular with the social justice hearings, there's been such a spotlight put on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a huge investment from the owners into the grassroots as well. I mean, we're structuring meetings all the time with Cricket South Africa's pathways and their development programs, and all these team owners are going to be investing capital and the experience into various levels of our grassroots programs and development programs that hopefully will aid in bringing the quality through that these discussions never have to happen. I mean, Cricket South Africa is now almost 30 years deep into these investments, and the policies are very stringent. And that will carry on. When you talk about a global platform, I don't think there's any bigger global platform than representing your country. So I think Cricket South Africa have really focused hard on that. The job is to make sure that there's enough talent to come in and that this conversation doesn't need to happen anymore. But certainly in our prospectus and our bid documents, that was a key focus. We had, I think in the end, 16 guys or people that bid on, team ownership. And it was in the end, there was one or two of the differentiators is the investment into this grassroots programs.
We can't wait to see how it all unfolds. Graham, thanks so much for being with us on Stumped. Good luck with the league once it gets going in January, and we'll look forward to following it closely.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you for all the time, Ali and Sunil and Jim. Nice to see you.
Pleasure.
And take care.
Well, that is it for this week's Stumped. I'll say my thanks to Jim Maxwell and to Sunil Gupta, and of course to Graham Smith, our guest, and all of you for listening. We'll see you again next week for a little bit more chat. Bye-bye for now.
From the BBC World Service, in association with ABC and All India Radio, this is Stumped.